Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining our panel today, Fast Forward, Financial Management into the Future. My name is Nicole Gable, and I'm a principal with Carney & Company, and I'll be the panel moderator today. And with me, I have our wonderful panel, Matt Miller, Steve Kuntz, Atisha Burks, and also Karen Dasuki. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to each of our panel members to provide a brief introduction.
All right, thanks, Nicole, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm Matt Miller. I'm a Deputy Commissioner with the Bureau of the Fiscal Service, a part of the Department of the Treasury. Within my purview at Fiscal Service, I deal with the government-wide accounting and reporting services that the Bureau provides. I deal with and oversee the shared services that Fiscal Service provides via the Administrative Resource Center, or ARC. I work with a small but I think well-known group to this audience, FIT, or the Financial Innovation and Transformation Group, that serves as a catalyst for government-wide financial management innovation. And then last but not least, I also work with Treasury's efforts to stand up the Financial Management QSMO, or Quality Service Management Organization. So with that alphabet soup, I'll turn it to Steve.
All right, thank you very much, Matt. I'm Steve Kuntz. I'm the Deputy Chief Financial Officer and the Director of Financial Management for the Department of Commerce. As such, I have responsibility for the financial management accounting throughout the department, managing the consolidated financial statements along with the financial statement audit for the Department of Commerce, as well as developing and implementing the department's new integrated financial system, which will be hopefully going online in phases from FY23 through FY25. Additionally, and part of why I think I'm on this panel is the fact that I am the chair of the Workforce Modernization Executive Steering Committee as part of the Federal Chief Financial Officer Council. So hopefully I can provide some insights as far as the future direction of the workforce from that perspective. Over to Atisha.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Atisha Burks, and I am the Assistant Director for Resource Management. Under my purview is financial management, human resources, contracting, and personnel security. And a self-imposed role is business transformation. And I'll turn it over to Karen.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's a delight to be here, also with my fellow panelists. We are all at one time or another have been on panels together, so I am very happy to be with them. I'm Karen Dasuki. I'm the Director of the Office of Finance and Accounting at the Department of Energy. My responsibilities for the department covers from accounting operations all the way to consolidated financial statements, payment integrity and internal control risk management programs, as well as loan accounting, pension and post-retirement benefits. So I cover a gamut of everything that you can consider as finance and accounting. So I am going to turn back to Nicole. Over to you.
Thanks, Karen. And again, I'm Nicole Gable. I'm the moderator today, and I have the wonderful opportunity to have this great panel here with me. I'm a principal at Carney & Company, and I'm the Deputy Director of our Emerging Technology practice. I'm very focused on integrating technology solutions into the federal government audit, business processes, and also internal controls. I've spent more than a dozen years helping the federal government, both on the civilian and the contractor side, in support of these efforts. I specialize in solution development, primarily through technology integration, combining both private sector and private sector best practices along with my knowledge of the public sector. And with that, I would like for each of the panelists to go ahead and provide an overview of their programs and missions.
All right, thanks, Nicole. So here, the slide shows the mission and vision statement for Fiscal Service. I'm not going to read that, but for those unfamiliar with Fiscal Service, we play a real central role in the financial management operations of the federal government. Everything from dispersing nearly 90% of the government's payments to overseeing the federal government's collection infrastructure, financing the government's operations, and then accounting and reporting for all of that activity. And on the next slide, this next slide, the data points here is what I would refer to as the kind of the back of the baseball card or bubblegum card for fiscal service. You know, some of our key performance statistics for last fiscal year. And I'm not going to go through these, but again, it speaks to the central role that we play. And really, these metrics here speak more to one of our overarching priorities, which is operational excellence. But I think as it relates to the panel today, I just also wanted to highlight that in addition to operational excellence, the Bureau has 4 other key priorities or areas of focus, and those are workforce, customer experience, data, and innovation. And again, I think those are all germane to our conversation here this afternoon. So with that, Steve.
All right, thanks again. As I said, I'm part of the Department of Commerce. Like Matt, I'm not going to read this for you, but I can basically tell you that our job is to ensure jobs with economic growth and opportunity. What does that mean for the Department of Commerce? The department is sort of a federated organization. It has a number of various different components that some of you may or may not actually realize are part of the Department of Commerce. So we have NOAA. We have the National Institute of Standards and Technology, we have the Census, we have the Economic Development Administration, and we have the United States Patent and Trademark Office, just to name a few of the 12 bureaus that are part of the Department of Commerce. As it says, we have about 47,000 employees. And if we want to go to the next slide, for myself, I'm part of the Office of the Chief Financial Officer and the Assistant Secretary for Administration. And as I sort of outline briefly in the highlights of what my responsibilities are, we basically oversee the department's financial resources, our human resources, and the facilities. We provide oversight over all of the department's policies and procedures as it relates to all the administrative functions, and that ranges from budget to human resources to health and safety of the employees to the facilities, procurement, travel, etc. And we also manage the actual Herbert C. Hoover building in Washington, D.C. That has actually been delegated to us from GSA. And so we manage that, and that actually houses the majority of the smaller bureaus within the Department of Commerce, such as the Economic Development Administration, the International Trade Administration, the Minority Business Development Administration, the National Telecommunications and Information Service, things of that nature. Again, a wide variety of organizations, all of which support economic growth, ensure that we understand what the seasonality is going to bring, so our farmers and the rest of the country can plan for the water and things of that nature that are necessary for agriculture. So there's a wide variety of what Commerce does to help sustain the economy. With that, I'll hand it on over to Atisha.
Thank you, Steve. So the Federal Protective Service is responsible for the protection of federal facilities and those within those facilities. And just, I guess, to speak bluntly, we are the security guards. So when you go to a federal building, we are those people out front. And in addition to that, I like to say we protect federal facilities plus, because we're also involved in other areas such as what happened in Portland, and we're critical in the areas of the southwest border. So we're all over. Next slide, please. So we protect more than 1.4 million employees, supporting 66 agency missions in more than 9,500 facilities. If I had the map up here, it'd be covered in dots from FPS locations. We are, essentially, we have 15,000 contractors that support us as well. And as you can see, there are a couple of things that we have: criminal investigations, contract management. We have the contracted PSOs, and that's around 15,000, and dispatch and alarm monitoring support. And I'll turn it over to Karen.
Right. A lot of you probably are familiar with Department of Energy, with the Energy Star, appliances, stickers, and such. But we actually do more than that. We are actually the department that owns the prized national labs. Some of you have heard of Los Alamos and National Lab, Brookhaven, as well as Lawrence Livermore. Those are some of the 17 national labs that Department of Energy runs. Actually, we own those labs, and it's actually run by contractors. So we have over 100,000 some plus contractors that help us run sites and labs throughout the country. So that's where a lot of our legacy came from the Manhattan Project. So our mission really is about, ensuring America's security and prosperity through addressing our energy, environmental, and nuclear challenges. And I mentioned earlier about the lab. That's where a lot of the transformative science and technology research come from. So that's what really at its core, what Department of Energy does. And we also have the Power Marketing Administrations. So you heard a lot right now about the power grid, also about, the climate changes. That's a lot of what Department of Energy is at the forefront of this. Next slide, please. So I mentioned very briefly just now what is under my portfolio, but we are also under the CFO's office. We do the budget administration, including formulation and execution. And then we also have financial policy, and we run all the corporate business systems for the department. That includes not only just financial management systems, but our business data warehouse, as well as the human resource systems as well, and a gamut of other little mixed systems and that kind of interface into our financial systems. And we do a lot of strategic planning, the 5-year budget. We look at performance, and we also hold many, many titles, all in addition of and to, such as we have the Chief Risk Officer, we have the Senior Assessment Officer for Data Act, and we also have the PMIO, the PIO, and anything O's. So that's what the CFO's office does in Department of Energy. So with that, I'm going to turn it back to Nicole.
Thanks, Karen. So everyone should see our polling question up on the slides right now. So the question is, what's in your future? What are the biggest challenges your organization faces in its financial management future? Is it leaders for into the future? Supporting training and skill set enhancement opportunities? Moving away from manual transaction processing and toward automation? Understanding stakeholders and users of financial information on a more detailed level, or all of the above? So we'll give everyone a few seconds here to respond, and we'll see where the responses go. So it looks like overwhelmingly that it's all of the above. It looks like moving away from manual transaction processing and toward automation is a not very close second, but more than 60% said all of the above. So I think that will be good to keep in mind as we move into our panel. Okay, so my first question for the panel today is, what keeps you up at night when you think about the future? Is the future dark, or is it so bright you have to wear shades?
All right, so here we go. Here's my corny prop from the session. Now, I'll take those off so I can see. So no, I think that tells my answer. I think at least in federal financial management, the future is extremely bright. And I would say that for a couple of reasons. Number one, there's a strong foundation that we have to build on moving forward. There's a foundation of standards. Standards enable, sharing of information. So in federal financial management, we've got a strong foundation of data standards and process standards that can be leveraged. Number two, there's a strong technology foundation. there's no shortage of commercial providers that are providing very capable core financial management software solutions, innovative solutions, the ability to be hosted in cloud arrangements and the like. So there's a strong technology foundation. And then third, my view is that I think there's been an increasing receptivity and buy-in by the federal financial management community on the benefit and the value of sharing solutions and common and shared solutions and the like. So with those as kind of the three stools of a foundation, and then layering on top of that those areas of focus I mentioned earlier, from workforce to data, customer experience to innovation, I think the future is very bright to really take the federal financial management to the next level and really elevate the role of agency CFOs as well.
This is Steve. If I could build off of that, Nicole, is that okay? All right. I would agree wholeheartedly with what Matt said, that the future is bright, but I think it also comes with some challenges that we need to make sure that we're focusing on. He touched on a couple of them. I would agree with the technology aspect, the data aspect. And because of those two significant drivers of the changes that the financial management community are going to be facing in the coming years, I think it's really important that we have to focus on what are the needs of our workforce and what are they going to be as we move forward. Because the way we're doing things today is not necessarily going to be the way we're going to be doing things in the next 5 to 10 years. There's lots of technology changes that the FIT office is helping us to bring to bear within the federal government. And that requires new skill sets. It requires refreshing of older skill sets. We're still going to be accountants and financial management people and budget analysts, but at the end of the day, I think we're going to be applying those skill sets slightly differently, because we're going to have technology that I didn't have when I was going to school to get my degree in financial management. And the students coming out of school, if we want to attract the best and the brightest, we need to make sure that the federal government is on par with those organizations that are utilizing the tools that these students are working with right now in classes. And that's one of the reasons why one of my passions has been to work on this workforce modernization effort, to make sure that we are building those foundational blocks for the financial management community. But I would agree totally that the future is definitely bright. We have tons of opportunities. We just need to make sure that we are leveraging those opportunities to make those hurdle jumps over the challenges that both Matt and I, and I'm sure Karen and Atisha will have to say. Thank you.
I think I'm going to jump in really quickly, because I think, the traditional financial management functions have really evolved. We're no longer focusing on controls, compliance, and reporting. Sadly and ironically, a lot of those are under what I'm doing. So that also forces me and my leadership team to constantly try to figure what's next to get along, ride along and try to drive the changes. We're now, a lot of the financial management arena is focusing also on, aside from digital transformation that Matt and Steve had mentioned, but we're also looking at performance measurement and management and the strategy on those, because we can no longer, just execute, transact. A lot of those have to be done, and we got to be able to manage them. How do we manage and link performance to risk, to the budget, and then, in a circular movement that we can track them and make sure that the taxpayers' money is getting its best bang for its buck. So that's where I look at it as well. Nicole or Atisha?
Atisha, did you have anything that you wanted to remark upon related to the question?
No, I agree with my fellow panelists, and I didn't want to repeat anything. So everything they said is completely spot on. Things are changing, and we need to start changing with it. So.
No, I think that's an excellent comment, and I think that's a good lead into our next question. And we're starting to get some audience questions too related to this. So We've all talked about sort of what's going on within each of our organization, and there's definitely a lot going on. So what skills are a must to get to the future, and how do we prepare and train our leaders for the future?
So similar to what I just said, the world is changing. We need to start changing with it. And really it's the tone at the top. So from a leadership perspective, because things are changing and changing quickly sometimes, I guess, in comparison to how it used to be, leaders need to be agile and flexible. Agility is the ability to move and think quickly and easily. Flexibility is bending easily without breaking, which I'm sure some of us felt like doing over the past year. And as what typically happens when I'm speaking on a panel, I read an article last night that applies, and it was talking about the expansion of remote work and how it's increasing the competition between the public and the private sector. The quote in the article said something to the effect that we should train managers to manage outcomes and not, are you at your desk at 8 a.m.? Because that may not be possible right now. And that we need to provide managers with the right tools to coach employees and be able to receive feedback. Very critical. I'm also seeing that we need to provide ways for employees to advance in their careers. Advancement isn't always a promotion. Financial management is a huge arena filled with tons of expertise and different areas that we can move into. And from a leadership perspective, I think our job is to provide the ability and the environment, including the resources, to allow employees to maybe detail to other offices or divisions. Cross-training is a good thing. Another thing that I thought about is self-confidence. From a leadership perspective, we need to have the self-confidence to not be the smartest person in the room, but be smart enough to have possibly hired one of the smartest people in the room. And that to me, I think, is something that I've lived by. If I don't have to speak in a meeting because someone from my team took care of it, that's a good meeting to me. That was a good meeting. And then also leading by example. We all report to someone. How would you want your supervisor to treat you if you had a family emergency or if you had to leave your desk for 15 minutes? We're constantly being watched. This isn't a do as I say, not as I do type situation. We're adults we're dealing with here. And, we're being watched, and we're probably more than likely also being talked about. And do you know who the people are talking to? They're talking to future employers. They're talking to future employees, and they're making judgments that can span the financial arena. Like Karen mentioned earlier, we've all met each other before. It's pretty small. It's big, but kind of small. And then also accepting criticism. Change can only happen after truth. If people don't feel comfortable coming to you with whatever it is, good, bad, or indifferent, then guess what? You're probably not getting the truth. If you're not getting the truth, then you're probably not making good decisions because you don't have the full scope. So,
if I may, I'd like to build on what that excellent foundation that Atisha just put out there. And that is, and to build on that, I'd like to just say that in addition to everything that she just spoke to, working with the managers to identify what are those skill sets and competencies that we need to be focusing on as we're moving into the future. And from the work that the Workforce Modernization Working Group has done, a few items that I would just want to highlight to let everyone know that we're just not letting the world pass us by in the federal financial management community. We did a 18 months worth of research looking at what's been happening, and the things that have bubbled up is that we need to be focusing more on data visualization, data analytics, data presentation. We need to be looking at how do we adapt to the changes in technology, and what does that mean for each of our individual employees, because it's going to be different depending on the different business lines, as Karen spoke to a little bit earlier. And then we want to make sure that we're looking at preparing both the current workforce for what their gaps may be as these changes are occurring, as well as identifying what are the things that the incoming workforce could bring to bear within the financial management community, and making sure that we are competitive with them so that they are not only looking at us in the federal government, are not looking at just the private sector, but are looking at the federal government as viable opportunities. Because we have a way that we have something in the federal government that I think is not in any other areas of the private sector, and no disrespect to you, Nicole, and that is that we have every area of passion that anybody may want to have that they could focus on. If you're interested in going into space, we've got places that you can go for that. If you're interested in staying on Earth and dealing with the soil, we have places for you to work with that. If you want to deal with the ocean, we have places who want to do that. If you want to keep things clean, we have organizations that want to do that. If you want to power the world, you have Corinne to go to. You know, we have all these different areas that, you know, people can be are very passionate about: sustainability, climate change, all of that. And you can make a difference within the financial management community. You can make a difference because we are making those things happen. We are, you know, we're putting those resources on the ground and making sure that they're there. And I think the important thing for us to be able to do is to show how can we take where we're going into the future as far as the skill sets that we need to be successful, and maintain the current staffing so that they feel a place in that workforce, as well as future workforce folks coming in, so that they can actually feel passionate and feel that their skill sets are being appropriately utilized.
I would just chime in on what they said, and really one thing that Atisha said too. I think she made a comment about the world getting smaller, and I think the world's getting much smaller and much more interconnected. And so this isn't necessarily so much a skill as maybe a characteristic in the workforce that we need to try to encourage. But that's curiosity or inquisitiveness. You know, asking questions and trying to understand the connections between the services I'm providing and the other things that are going on to the left or the right. I'll try to give one brief example. There's one program within fiscal service that's focused on collecting delinquent debt owed to the federal government. And then there's another program over in another part of the Bureau that provides opportunities for individuals to buy savings bond and treasury securities and the like. And over there, we're dealing with this issue where we call it MUD, matured unredeemed debt, where we have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of folks that have purchased savings bonds, they've matured, they're no longer accruing interest, but they've not been redeemed. And what we find in many cases is the holders of those savings bonds may not even know they have that. But you can see the potential connection, right? In that, in one case, we're trying to get money that's owed to us from individuals, and in another program, we have money to give that's owed, that the government owes to somebody else. But if we don't think broadly, then gosh, we don't even connect those dots. But if we encourage our workforce to have a broad awareness of the things around them, what a novel idea that could improve our debt collection capabilities and also provide a better experience for the customers as well, is to be able to think, make those connections, figure out how I can use data to then improve my services. So I would say, again, just that characteristic of, you know, we're not looking for doers, we're looking for thinkers. And again, I think the curiosity goes a long way.
I agree. And I think, you know, the broader the ability for the workforce to think through, the better equipped they are to be adaptable to the future needs of financial management. And I think we talked about digital transformation. One of the things that I'm pushing for within my own office is to really train my staff, the subject matter experts, to understand and actually develop bots, because I think they have to be the ones to be empowered to develop those RPAs rather than depend on a developer to do it from beginning to end. I mean, obviously, we need to partner with, you know, much more savvy tech folks, but they need to, the users know what they want, they know the steps, and they can upskill through that as well. That's part of that digital transformation piece that I think we have to, you know, prepare them for, but we also need to train them in other areas. You know, they shouldn't just know debits and credits. They really should understand how contracts work, for example, how, you know, what are the differences in contracting, and go out there and learn and get themselves certified so that they have a broader view of how financial management writ large works together. So.
Thank you for that. And I think, Karen, in your comment, you touched a little bit on one of the other top questions that we have from the audience. but I think they would also be interested to hear what everyone else has to say too, in terms of, Karen, you talked about how you're preparing your workforce for the rapid changes coming up in technology. To the rest of the panelists, how are you preparing your workforce for that?
So from my perspective, we're focusing on analytics. Like, you know, we have tools now that can give us the data, generate the data. And I don't want people that can just present it well. I need you to tell me what it means. Tell me how it's going to help us in the future. And normally what I've found is that people are so used to presenting the data for their area. For instance, if I have a presentation from someone from our budget shop, they're focused on obligations and UDOs. Well, I want them to use their minds to kind of go further than that. How is that going to affect any investments in future systems, let's say? Or how is that going to affect procurement? That's the kind of information that I want to know. And I want them to start thinking outside the box. So typically what I'll do is I'll ask probing questions. And it usually starts with why until I can't ask why anymore. And that kind of gets them to the root and starts, you know, has them thinking kind of outside of their normal comfortable homes right now, but they're boxes. So
I would say, in addition to what Atisha just said, I also think it's important for the leaders and the managers within each of our organizations to actually work with the staff, because to get them to the realization that things are changing. Some folks have been, you know, not only just in my own organization, but, you know, across the board have been doing the same thing for 5, 10, 15, some people have been doing it for 20 years, and they've only seen modest changes to that business flow or that business process. You know, and as we've seen over the course of, you know, the past 100 years, change has been coming at a much more exponential and accelerated aspect. It's not taking years to go. You know, when I started with the Internal Revenue Service some 30 plus years ago, you know, we would be doing data calls using fax machines. You talk to a student coming out of school, and in addition to not knowing what a typewriter is, or having never seen one other than the Smithsonian, you know, they barely know what a fax machine is, because everything is transmitted electronically through a computer, you know, what have you. And so it's getting folks that have been doing things and preparing them for what those changes are so that they can be successful. Because it's not that they've been doing things wrong, they've been doing things the way the technology at the time was appropriate, and now that technology and the demand has changed, as Atisha talked about with data. You know, the drive and demand for not only the data, but what does the data mean, is much more prevalent and more demanding than what it was in the past. In the past, it was more, you know, your basic trend analysis, and you put together those multiple year column charts, and you'd call it a day, show the percentage changes, and that would be it. Now they're looking for interrelated dependencies, and we have strategic sourcing, and we've got other aspects that mining that data will actually give us more insights as to where we should be putting our resources to go to. And it's just sort of educating, in addition to giving them the skills and understanding where they need to be, it's actually educating the staff as well, because some of us are, you know, myself included, you know, change is hard, and you don't want to change unless it's you see the reason or the need. And I think that's incumbent upon the leadership to be able to demonstrate what that reason is, what the need is, in order for us to still maintain the high level of excellence that Matt has talked about, that is the foundation of the financial management community within the federal government.
Yeah, no, I would just say it's not so much trying to invest in the technical skills or technical training. Again, not that those aren't important, but there's a kind of an assumption, you know, we'll have folks with the right skills there. But it is more of these other things that the folks have already touched on, like the leadership mentoring and the leadership development. There's that, you know, I've mentioned customer experience a couple times, even some education on what is customer experience and how that's different than customer service. You know, if you heard Dave Lieberg talk on the plenary session this morning, you know, a call center agent can provide out of this world customer service after somebody waited on the phone an hour. So it's still a terrible customer experience, where, again, we need folks to understand what does a customer journey map look like, and what does the voice of the customer look like, and human-centered design, and some of those things to advance. And then also on the innovation space, I mean, yes, we want to explore new cutting-edge technologies that we're doing, exploring the use of blockchain and AI and different things like that. But sometimes we can get so focused on, okay, what's the cool technology, and we need to find a problem to fit that technology. We need to teach and challenge our workforce to be innovative in their thinking and process innovation. Why do I continue to do this the same way? Are there better ways to do this? And a lot of times when you come up with better ways to provide your service, it doesn't really require a new cool technology to improve a process. So it's really more of those, the process thinking, the customer experience, the leadership mentoring, the change management that Steve talked about.
Can I add one thing to all these August feedback from my panelists? It's aside, like what Matt and Steve said, aside from the technology and such, I think there's also the skill set for financial management professional to gain is actually networking skills. Skills that we do not take for granted, but those are the ones that will help us a long way, especially for those that have, great aspirations for something along their career. I think that's a big skill set to have. I am not a good networker. Sometimes it makes me very tired, but I also realize after the end of the day, especially if we have been able to go to a PDT in person, I realize that while I would go back to my hotel room all drained, but at the same time, I have built a lot of friendships and connections that years down the road have served me very well. So I think that's one piece advice I would say, remember to keep that skill set very, very handy in your back pocket.
Thank you all for your comments related to that question. I think those are very valuable comments. And so, we've been talking about leveraging technology and analytics. The next question is more gauged towards, what are some opportunities for agencies and CFOs to make better use of technology in the future from all of your perspectives?
I'll jump in there with one thing, and this is a shameless plug for the Financial Management QSMO, in that, one of the areas that I think historically agencies have invested a lot of time and energy on is around the implementation and then the maintenance and ongoing, keeping current of core financial management systems. And that's really the vision and the objective of the Financial Management QSMO, which is working very collaboratively with agencies and industry participants to build a marketplace of modern cloud-based core financial systems that have, that come with an agreed upon existing set of capabilities, with the goal there being that once that marketplace is available, when agencies have modernization needs, they can come to the marketplace for their core financial management modernization needs and be able to achieve those at much reduced time, cost, and risk. So again, that's something that's been going on for about a year or so, and a lot of good work with agencies to build that marketplace. But I think that's going to be a good future opportunity as agencies have modernization needs.
One of the things that I've thought about and actually want to pursue even further, I'm trying to do it at FPS, is focusing on systems that just don't focus on one area. Not just for financial management, but is there something that can also handle the table of organization, that can handle procurement, that can handle certain HR workflows, so that we don't pigeonhole ourselves, but we're also staying interconnected. Because that's the other thing that I found, like, okay, so HR hasn't talked to the financial management group to see if we can actually afford to hire more people. If it's in one system, we wouldn't have that problem. So that's high on my list, looking at things that can service all areas.
I'm going to try and do a plug just like Matt. As an extension of Steve, in the workforce initiative that he leads as the chair for the CFO Council, is that there is a project right now, is a focus group that we're working on, is coming up with what would consist of training courses, or what is the core pieces to train the future data scientists, the future data analysts. So that's where Mike Wecklow is actually leading that piece, and I am the executive advisor on that focus group. So I think that piece is sort of related, is how do we get the financial management prepared in terms of technology. Well, technology is not the front and center, it is the support, right? So we need to train people to know what technology is available out there and to use that to couple with our needs in financial management environment. And I think that's what it is. We need to train the people, we need to upskill the people and get them exposed to all the different aspects, and get them to shift their mindset that it's not only about debits and credits. Obviously, I say that a lot because I run the accounting shop, and a lot of them have to have positive education. But I'm also thinking that the future and the current, in terms of course requirements in colleges and universities, they have already started. But from a government perspective, we need to be able to take what the colleges are churning out and then adapt those to the government and to our financial management environment.
Yeah, and that I'll just do a real quick, since I know we're watching our time. I think that is the basic focus that I was trying to point to, as far as being able to ensure that the federal government can attract those skill sets from the colleges and the universities, because they're doing a lot for that is utilizing the current technology that some of us are struggling in the federal government to upgrade and to get our systems in the technology to where some of the private sector folks are already. And I think there's a lot of opportunities for these individuals, both for our current staffs to be able to learn where we're heading with the right skill sets, and going, hopefully creating that data cohort that Corinne was mentioning as part of our workforce modernization, but also to be able to show some relevancy to the strong students that are taking public finance, financial management, accounting in school, and are using the tools to be able to do their schoolwork, and then to show them that is relevant to today in the federal government, as opposed to coming in and, I'll date myself. When I first started, I was using Lotus 123. I got that training when I was in grad school, and then I started with the Internal Revenue Service, and they handed me a 13-column accounting spreadsheet, one of those big pads of paper, all manual. You had to write everything down. And I was sitting there saying, why aren't we doing this on a spreadsheet? Within Lotus 123, now known as Excel. And those are the types of things that you don't want to turn off. I actually used that to my advantage and tried to get the organization to start adapting, which ultimately over time they did, with not just my help, but help of a lot of other people. And that's what we need to be able to do. We don't want to turn off these high-powered, high-charging new recruits coming out of school and say, oh, well, we're just still doing it the way we did it 20 years ago. We will not get the cream of the crop. And we know that we need to continuously bring in, through succession planning, new blood into the system. And the existing staff, we want to make sure that they see their relevance, and we need to make sure that they're getting the appropriate training and know where their career can go. And as Atisha said earlier, it's not just necessarily, I think it was Atisha, it's not necessarily just a promotion after promotion. There's a lot of things moving where you can move laterally, to where Corinne was saying, learn procurement. You can apply that knowledge and come back into financial management at a higher level. So you don't necessarily keep going up in financial management, you go sideways and then you go up, and you come back at a higher level. So, those are the different opportunities and we need to be able to communicate that and have it more structured, so that way the employees see what that career path can look like for them. And that's part of what we're trying to work towards in this workforce modernization for financial management in the government.
Just some stats I want to add to Steve's is that 77% in a poll survey by Harvard Business Review Analytics Services said that 77% of those respondents are still actually relying on labor-intensive manual processes to collect and consume data. So that's that's something that we have to keep in mind, because that means we will have a lot of work before us to try to change that mindset and that type of model, because we've got to change. We have no choice. We have to change.
Thank you all for that. So one last question. So we talked about opportunities to potentially leverage technology, but what do you guys think that stakeholders in the future will ask that they're not currently asking now?
I would say transparency, more transparency. I don't want to call a customer service number anymore. I want to go online and pull my data from a secure location. I don't want to press 1 or 2 or anything of the sort. I just want to be able to get online, see my data, and move on. And I think that we are moving towards that. I just think we need to move a little bit faster and get comfortable with that idea, that we don't have to. And I love that, Matt, you mentioned customer service versus customer experience. That's part of both, I think. From the customer experience, I don't want to sit online. I have things I have to do now, and I'd like to get an answer. It's my information. So I think we really, really need to do a better job at providing that information to stakeholders on a real-time basis.
I think there's a combination too that we can, when Atisha was talking about that I don't want to push 1 or push 2. And I totally agree with that. And I think if we can leverage the technology to be more transparent so that people can get at the data that they feel that they have the right and should have the ability to get to, there are certain points in time where you are going to need to talk to people. And I would love to get out of that, circular phone tree thing that until you keep hitting pound like 20 times, you don't get to talk to a real person. And so if we can, move the data or move some of that information so that it's more easily accessible in a secure location, et cetera, then I think that takes a lot of the burden off of those, phone trees that we've got that I think what Atisha was talking to, that we don't want to spend the time sitting on hold listening to elevator music.
I don't know, Matt, did you have anything? I know we're running short on time, but did you have anything quick that you wanted to add?
I think it's not just having to push the data out really quickly. I think it should be organic. It should be natural. I think the future is to allow users to go and play with the data themselves directly without having to learn anything that is very cumbersome or difficult. I know a lot of the AI language, machine language and AI are going to help that. And we are surrounded by that nowadays with Alexa and Siri and whatnot. But, it should be more accessible in the day-to-day data consumption that we do need and use every day. So that's my little 2-second plus, maybe a little longer.
Matt, did you have a comment related to that?
No, I'm good. I know we're about time, so nothing to add.
Well, thank you to the panel for being here today, and I really appreciate the audience, participating in the panel today. And I hope everyone has a great day, and thank you again.
Thank you.